We're back again here on the Winning Browns podcast. Today we're going to be talking about the top 10 greatest players in the history of the Houston Texans organization. Now, obviously, the Houston Texans are a very, very new organization, being only 23 years of age and being the youngest NFL team in the entire league. So they don't necessarily have a lot of legendary players who have strapped up with the team, a lot of Hall of Famers, not really. But they still have their fair share of guys who have contributed a lot to the franchise's history. And today we're going to be going over some of these players. At number 10, we're going to go with Whitney Mercilus, linebacker for the Texans from 2012 to 2021. Whitney Mercilus was never a Pro Bowler and was only an All-Pro once back in 2016, but he was a key piece to the vaunted Texans defense of the mid and late 2010s and one of the better players on that defense. Before being traded to the Green Bay Packers mid-2021, Whitney Mercilus tallied 57 career sacks with the Houston Texans, making him second all-time on the list of Texans pass rushers. For those reasons, Mercilus comes in at number 10 on this list. At number 9, we're going to go with C.J. Stroud. A little too high? I don't think so. C.J. Stroud, in just his first 2 years in the NFL, has taken a Texans team who was the laughingstock of the league and made them into a perennial playoff contender. In just his rookie season, Stroud put up 4,108 passing yards and 23 touchdowns and had the lowest interception percentage of any player in the entire league. He also finished his rookie season 8th place in MVP voting, leading the Texans to their first playoff match and playoff victory in 4 years, and leading the Texans to what is now become one of the more stable organizations in the entire AFC. Even as what was regarded as a sophomore slump, C.J. Stroud put up 3,700 yards and 20 touchdowns in his sophomore season while maintaining a 63% completion percentage. And while these numbers might seem a little bit pedestrian to be considered on a top 10 all-time greats list for a franchise, that's just how new the Houston Texans are, and that's just how much success he has provided him in such a little time, where I think he is deserving on being on this list. At number 8, I'm going to go with Matt Schaub, a guy that most people don't think would be likely to have 4,000 passing yards perennially, but he actually had 4,000 passing yards in 3 full seasons as a Texans starter. The most notable of these seasons being 2009, when Schaub led the league in passing yards with 4,770. Had it not been for injuries, Schaub might have actually been a little bit higher on this list, given the fact that he was having good numbers both in 2008 and 2011 prior to getting hurt. The Texans were 6-5 and 7-3 in those years while Schaub was the starter. But regardless of how new this franchise is, it's difficult to put a guy who wasn't treated as one of the best quarterbacks in the league during his time, let alone being an all-time great, to have him any higher on this list than number 8. So for that reason, I have him a little bit lower than some of the guys who I think contributed more to the Texans' success in the 2000s and the 2010s. One of those players is Mario Williams, who is the Texans' shocking 2006 first overall pick over Reggie Bush. Mario Williams was a 2-time Pro Bowler and 1-time All-Pro with the Texans, notching up 53 sacks in his time with the franchise, the third most of any player with the team. A very versatile player, Mario Williams could play pretty much any position alongside the defensive line, whether that was 3-4 interior defensive line, defensive end in a 4-3, or outside linebacker, which he did in his final season with the Texans prior to getting traded to the Buffalo Bills. At number 6, we're going to go with Dwayne Brown, tackle for the Texans for 9.5 seasons from 2008 to 2017. During his time with the Texans, Dwayne Brown was a 4-time Pro Bowler and 2-time All-Pro selection. Dwayne Brown is widely regarded as one of the best pass-blocking tackles of the early 2010s, consistently putting up 80-plus PFF grades from 2011 to 2015. Brown was ahead of his time as far as being a huge mammoth of a human being who could still run extremely fast. Brown being 6'5" and 330 pounds and still being able to run a 5-second 40 is very impressive, especially given the time that he played in. and being overall a stable force on what was rather a volatile offensive line that constantly saw moving pieces gives Dwayne Brown another reason to be high on this list. At number 5, give me Arian Foster. Foster was a running back for the Texans for 7 seasons, leading the league in touchdowns twice during his career. During his time with the Texans, Foster was the bell cow and the leader of a Texans offense that didn't really have a true identity at the quarterback position, but constantly was putting up 1,200 plus rushing yards seasons, and in fact led the league in rushing yards in 2010. He finished his time with the Texans with about 6,500 rushing yards and 54 rushing touchdowns. And Foster was also one of the better receiving running backs early on in his career, finishing with 600 plus receiving yards in both 2010 and 2011. At number 4, we're going to go with a man who has had a lot of controversy surrounding him over the last 4 years. That player is none other than, of course, Deshaun Watson, a man who, when he got traded from the Houston Texans to the Cleveland Browns, had arguably one of the best values of any trade piece in the history of the NFL. And while his time with the Browns has been marred with both controversy on and off the field, his time with the Texans was nothing short of spectacular on the field at the very least. Fact of the matter is, Watson was great from the day he stepped onto the football field for the Houston Texans. In his rookie season, in just 6 games as a starter, Watson had 1,700 passing yards and 19 touchdowns while having a 9.3 touchdown percent. Watson followed that up by 3 straight seasons of 25 plus touchdowns, 3 straight seasons of 67 or higher percent completion percentage, and 2 4,000 passing yard seasons, including a 2020 campaign where he led the league in passing yards with 4,823 yards while maintaining a 70% completion percentage. Watson also has 3 Pro Bowls, which is the most ever by a Texans quarterback. And regardless of what your opinion on him is, what he did on the field in just 4 years is unprecedented, and for that reason, he is a top 5 Texan of all time. At number 3, we're going to go with DeAndre Hopkins. I debated having him number 2, but because of the stupidity of Bill O'Brien, DeAndre Hopkins just did not play long enough with the Houston Texans. During his time with the Texans, DeAndre Hopkins was without a doubt one of the best receivers in the game. Hopkins was a 4-time Pro Bowler and a 3-time first-team All-Pro selection, leading the league in touchdowns 1 time back in 2017. Hopkins also had 3 seasons of 100-plus receptions, as well as 5 seasons of 1,200 or more receiving yards. Hopkins was known for having some of the best hands the league has ever seen and making some of the most ridiculous highlight reel catches you will ever see in your lifetime. Seriously, just go look at Hopkins' highlight reel from 2015 to 2019. It will just blow your mind. At number 2, however, I'm going to go with the guy who did play longer at the wide receiver position for the Texans. That's going to be Andre Johnson. During his time with the Texans, Andre Johnson was a 7-time Pro Bowler and a 4-time All-Pro selection, leading the league in yards per game 3 times, in yards twice, and receptions twice. Andre Johnson had some of the most consistent hands in the history of the league, averaging around a 62% catch rate. Johnson finished his time with the Texans as the franchise leader in every receiving statistic and is now the first and only Houston Texan to be in the Hall of Fame. He won't be the only one for long, however, as J.J. Watt is soon going to be eligible for the Hall of Fame, and he is the greatest Houston Texan of all time, in my opinion. J.J. Watt is one of the few players in NFL history to be regarded as the consensus best defensive player in the league for an extended period of time. Watt led the league in sacks twice during his career in 2012 and 2015 and came second place in sacks twice in 2014 and 2018. He also has the 3 highest amount of tackles for loss in a season recorded in NFL history. Watt's 2014 season is widely regarded as not only one of the best defensive seasons in NFL history, but one of the best overall seasons in NFL history, and I still find it hard to believe that he did not win an MVP that year, regardless of the fact that there is a quarterback bias. In 2014, Watt recorded 20.5 sacks, 51 QB hits, 29 tackles for loss, 59 tackles as an interior defensive line, a fumble recovery for a 59-yard touchdown, an interception return for an 80-yard touchdown, 3 additional offensive touchdowns, 4 forced fumbles, and 7 passes defended. Seriously, how does that not win you an MVP? Even though injuries held back his full potential as one of the all-time greats at the position, J.J. Watt's dominance in his 10 years with the Houston Texans still makes him, in my opinion, the greatest Houston Texan of all time. But yeah, that's the rankings overall as far as the top 10 greatest Houston Texans of all time. Let me know in the comments what you guys think, and until next time, peace.